Let's get to Turkey for all of the turkey heads in the chat who have been saying, Hasan, why aren't you covering Turkey? I have been. And I understandably have been paying close attention to what's going on as well. And considering that Rütük, which is the government censor, has made it illegal to broadcast any of these protests as of yesterday, or as of like tonight, I guess. For many Turks who have a VPN, I am probably the only place where they can get this information from. Rütük is the Turkish censor, like the Turkish government censor. Turkey doesn't have free speech, for those of you who don't know. Obviously, like the American government also has like some kind of censors on what you can and can't broadcast as well. But the Turkish government is actively using pre-existing organs to basically make it impossible to show the rest of the country what is happening. Twitch açık, VPN gerekmiyor. Bir de sol televizyon diye yine de haberdar ediyor az çok. Okay, this Turkish chatter is informing me that Twitch is actually open in Turkey, so you don't even need a VPN to watch me from Turkey right now. From what I understand, though, they also no, this is partisan chatter. This is not Nazi party. Partisan. It's just in reverse. The chatter is like trying to read what the partisan. Chatter's trying to read this in reverse and going Nazi trap. Yeah, dude, they have English banners.
In Istanbul last night, demonstrators...
Yeah. Look at the logos. What do you think these guys are... what do you think this guy's political perspective is when you look at those logos?
With police defying a government ban on protest. This, Turkey's biggest show of civil disobedience in well over a decade.
There are major protests in every big city in the country right now. And it all started when Recep Tayyip Erdogan recognized his influence and his prominence and his power was waning and decided to arrest the most popular leader in the opposition parties, the governor / mayor of Istanbul, İmamoğlu. Okay? And he did this by claiming that him and I think 25 or 27 other class members of his actually got their college degree through illicit means. It's all they forced the university to revoke their certificates, their diplomas, and then they arrested 100+ people initially that they had declared supporters of İmamoğlu. It was all established. It's all a lie, for the record. In Turkey, you can't become president or run for president without a college degree. I think it's a silly thing in the Constitution to begin with, but like, and Recep Tayyip Erdogan's degree itself has been called into question on its legitimacy. It's like a little. It's basically like an open secret that he doesn't have a real diploma, but it is a prerequisite to become the president. And previously, I believe it was the premier initially. And since Turkey is now a constitutional, it went from a parliamentary system to a presidential one. Now it's the president that has always needed it, but now it's like the top office in the country because of a referendum that Recep Tayyip Erdogan pushed for after implementing martial law after the coup. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Having said that, this opposition is not united on ideology. There are communists, socialists, Kurdish revolutionary groups. There are even some nationalists in the opposition, like breakaway parties from the ultra-nationalist party. It's a very unique opposition that comprises close to 50%, if not a little bit over 50% of the country. Erdogan's coalition government, on the other hand, is comprised of the ultra-nationalists, the MHP, and Erdogan's own party. However, Erdogan's popularity has obviously dropped tremendously due to hyperinflation and many other issues. And in that process, Erdogan recognizes that his time in office is coming to a close. And fearful of his future prospects, he is turning around and illegally arresting a whole bunch of people. Erdogan also seized the assets of İmamoğlu and claimed that they were also doing criminal activity, and also arrested a bunch of people that were sympathetic to İmamoğlu, journalists and academics alike. Mass suppression is taking place in Turkey. Suppression has always been a tool that Erdogan has utilized in the country, for the record. It's not new. There's no free speech in the country. Erdogan himself actually went to jail once, ironically, for reading a poem. And he has loved the lack of free speech since he's risen to power and has been in power for the past 22 plus years. What? We going to keep playing iTag, or are you going to thank me for the follow? There you go. Let's continue. Bro said, are you going to thank me for the follow? If I thanked every follower, I would have to just never stream. If I thanked every person that subscribes, I wouldn't even be able to stream. I would just be thanking subscribers. That's why I usually just stick to people who gift 5 subs or more. And even then, there are times when it's impossible for me to thank every single person. Did you lethal that kid for a dumb meme? Yes, I did. Bill Vog, thank you for the 5 gifted. Sex Saver, thank you for the 10 gifted. Maggie Fondor Connoisseur, thank you for the 5. Decoy, thank you for the 5 gifted. Mods, you can unban that person that I swatted away like a fly. I was just memeing. You should thank me for giving you the opportunity to let you follow me. All right. Everybody stop gifting subs. I'm not going to thank people any longer. Okay. It's just, I'm getting back to the story.
It's imperfect democracy seemingly sliding towards elected dictatorship.
Üzülerek söylüyorum.
Istanbul's mayor is Ekrem İmamoğlu. On Wednesday, his wife filmed him getting ready to hand himself over to police waiting outside his home. We're facing great tyranny, he said, but I will continue to fight against the person using this whole process as a tool against me. The person he has in mind is President Erdogan, in power for 23 years and winner of multiple elections, though the press and all the instruments of state seem to have succumbed to his...
Yeah, that's why I say, listen, you need to understand something. Turkish elections are usually not fair, but they still are real elections. And it's important to understand that, regardless of what people say, because it's important to understand that he does have popular support, okay? He will rig the elections in his favor by using the media and through other methods of political suppression against his opposition. But at the end of the day, there is real support, at least across the 50% boundary for him and his coalition. That's why he had to make a coalition, by the way, with MHP. Having said that, right now, ironically enough, this is probably the most popular he has ever been in terms of foreign policy, especially with the Ukraine stuff, especially with Syria. And yet, this is the least popular he's been in the country. So I think that's the reason why he used the goodwill that he got from European leaders who are like, "Oh my God, you did a fantastic job with the Syria stuff. You packed that shit up so neatly, and you're saying, you know, you're going to support Zelensky." He used the lack of interest that Western powers will have in basically saying, what the f are you doing to Erdogan? And I haven't really seen a lot of Western leaders criticize him for these insane actions, by the way. But he used that moment of opportunity to present, to basically engage in political repression, supercharged, in a way that is even unique to him. And he's been doing this for a very long time. So if you're wondering why European nations are not talking about this, part of the reason why, with the exception of like some news coverage from like Channel 4 or whatever, I'm talking like, why are European leaders not calling out Erdogan? You might be asking yourself that. And the reason for why is because he has a tremendous amount of support from European leaders right now, because he's like saying he's the protectorate of NATO. He's the protector of NATO at a time when Donald Trump is undermining NATO, right? Erdogan has always used his foreign policy acumen to his advantage to manipulate European politics, whether it be engaging in the destabilization of Syria and then, you know, having his armed militants like his Salafist brigade overtake alongside HDS the Syrian government and occupy it, and then linking up with HDS, or whether it be entertaining 6 million Syrian refugees previously that escaped due to the Syrian civil war and offering them refugee status in the country with the only purpose, not because he's a humanitarian, mind you, but because, one, he wants to be the leader of the Ummah, the entire Muslim world. He loves that. He loves when people glaze him for that. But more importantly than that, he did that specifically so he can use the refugees as a bargaining chip. One, to directly get funds from European countries that he will fill his coffers, his own personal coffers with, which is exactly what he did. And two, because you can use those refugees as a threat. Anytime Erdogan feels stress from European leaders, he'll say, I'm going to drive 6 million Syrian refugees to the Greek border, and they're going to be your problem now. Make no mistake. While I do agree with the actions, and I certainly find myself at odds with the coalition's opinion on the refugee status of Syrian migrants, because I ultimately believe in humanitarian aid and opening up your borders to people who are escaping political instability and violence, I still recognize where Erdogan is coming from, what the motives are here, right? Now, having said that, because of the incredible amount of support that he's garnered in the past couple of months due to his actions in Syria, I think he saw an opening to pounce on his opposition that is very likely going to thwart him and kick him out of power.
Authoritarian will. But the arrest of Mayor İmamoğlu looks like a new low. This evening he was taken to Istanbul's state security court with around 100 others accused of corruption and supporting terrorism. And it may be no coincidence that tomorrow he was due to be nominated as a presidential candidate himself. This was the coastal city of Izmir last night. Along with Istanbul and Ankara, it has an elected mayor from the main opposition party. Turkey has a history of military coups, but these protesters see what's happening as a political coup. Turkey's president going to war with his main political rival. Mr. Erdogan is...
Yeah, he cooked them before he even could run. Also, I do want to point this out. Elon Musk claims to defend free speech, but today he enables authoritarian censorship in Turkey by blocking access to critical accounts on X. This is a global issue. We call on journalists, activists, and the public worldwide to hold him accountable today. Yeah. Elon Musk's social media platform X has suspended several accounts belonging to opposition figures in Turkey amid widespread civil unrest in the country. This piece of Author. Meanwhile, while Twitter is one of the few outlets that people can show political discontent, and Elon Musk is gladly banned opposition accounts. Like I said earlier, the Turkish government has also stopped most broadcasters from showing the protests and the discontent altogether.
71 now. Yesterday he lit a fire to celebrate the Nevruz, or the coming of spring. He was himself arrested when he was mayor of Istanbul.
And is Turkish President Erdogan's move all about timing? Turkish researcher, Erdogan aims to end İmamoğlu's political career, but he does not worry about global pushback. No. Yeah, I told you. It's because he has the most motion right now. He's got so much momentum. Turkish chatters, I told you this 3 days ago when he first moved in this direction. It's because I understand what's happening. I told you. European leaders are weak right now, and they rely on Erdogan. They're worried about Trump. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They will never criticize Erdogan right now. America, I don't think, gives a single shit about Recep Tayyip Erdogan anyway. He can do whatever he wants. Trump likes him.
And it kick-started his career as Turkey's leader. So he's playing with fire if history now repeats itself. He said he will retire in 2028, but he could engineer an early election or a constitutional change to stay on, presenting himself as an alternative to this week's unrest.
bir yolsuzluk operasyonu bahane edilerek
They are trying to create turmoil on our streets using an anti-corruption operation as an excuse. We won't allow a hand.
Türk dünyası yüzyılı. Oh my God. Erdogan is also such a chameleon. Hey, don't do that. Don't show that. Chatters, come on. Don't show other chatters who are in Turkey who are protesting. What are you, crazy? Do you know how many people watch this broadcast? Are you insane? Don't do that. Operational security, please. I wouldn't even post that, to be fair. But in any case, I will not be showing that here. Anyway, you probably didn't think. It's fine. But be mindful. So Erdogan is such a goddamn chameleon that he went from liberal, Euro-focused privatizer, pro-capitalist privatizer, to expanding the welfare state at times when necessary, to Islamist, who has never really changed trajectory from being an Islamist, to to now pan-Turanist, who will also restore the caliphate. He's going to restore the caliphate and he's a pan-Turanist at the same time. Okay? He is literally everything. But more importantly, he is a watermelon salesman. Okay? He's done it all. He's been everything. You could call him at times a social democrat. You could call him a European liberal and a privatizer of state enterprise. That's how he came into office initially. Guy who was like, I don't really care about this gay stuff, to like Islamist who you can do the political compass memes for him with every direction he has taken. Now his administration is pro Kurdistan. Not really, but it's wild. It's wild that he is both simultaneously an ultranationalist and a pan-Turanist, but also saying, you know, we're gonna get Abdullah Öcalan out, and he's gonna do a call. He's gonna tell all the Kurds to put down their arms, to lay down their arms. He's everything. Okay, he's everything and more. That's why he's been in power for 22 plus years.
Handful of incompetent, ambitious individuals to attack the peace, to provoke our people, to terrorize and cause worry in Turkey.
Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is 54, won't go quietly, telling counter-terrorism police that he faces unimaginable slanders against him. He's also been stripped of his university degree, which prevents him from running for president, though his party leader, who now sleeps in the mayor's office, says a proxy could run instead.
If he is unable to apply, then somebody else will be a candidate instead, and they will win. If he faces a political ban, we will turn the next election into a referendum to remove it and set him free.
Turkey's president was today attending to affairs of state. A 21st century sultan who has put his country on the geopolitical map, mediating in conflicts from Syria to Ukraine, and unlikely to face much pushback from President Trump during a trip to Washington planned for next month. Istanbul is home to 16 million people. The question is whether these protests on behalf of their mayor will grow, or whether Mr. Erdogan...
I mean, dude, look at this. This happens in Serbia. This happens in Turkey. This happens in France. It happens in South Korea. It never comes close to this in a lot of Western nations. Like, it never happens like this in the United States of America. And I think that's part of the real reason why you never see like the level of political repression that these administrations engage in here in the United States. They left Saraçhane, that place, left protesters to get mauled by the police.
Is now so ruthless that he orders whatever it takes to reassert control.
Jonathan Rugman reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Gönül Tol, who leads the Middle East Institute Turkish program. She joined us from Washington, D.C., and I began by asking her if Mr. Erdogan's move to detain his main opponent, Ekrem İmamoğlu, was a sign of authoritarian rule.
It is indeed a high-risk, high-reward strategy. If things go as Erdogan plans, he can remain in power for life. What he's trying to do is not just block İmamoğlu's run for presidency in 2028. He also wants to resecure Istanbul municipality. Istanbul is Turkey's biggest town and its economic powerhouse. And Erdogan used the city for many decades to build his clientelistic network. But when those resources were cut off, when Ekrem İmamoğlu won the mayorship in 2019, that was a huge blow to Erdogan's financial network. So he wants to recapture Istanbul, and the terror charges linked to İmamoğlu is because of that.
Turkish democracy, many would argue, has been endangered for some time anyway. Is this now the end of Turkish democracy?
Until now, political scientists consider Turkey's democracy as a competitive authoritarian regime. It is competitive because there are still elections. You still have legitimate political parties, and they actually compete in the elections. But it's authoritarian because Erdogan holds so much power over institutions, over media, over courts, that the playing field is not fair. So far, electoral competition in Turkey has been unfair but real. But this is a turning point. Arresting his strongest rival is a turning point where Erdogan is trying to shift the country into a Putin-style autocracy, where he handpicks his opponents and he won't accept any surprises at the ballot box.
But not without a reaction, right? Because although İmamoğlu is in jail, or because he's in jail, we've seen demonstrations, mass demonstrations in 7 Turkish cities, including Istanbul. More than 300 protesters have been arrested. Does that now mean that opposition politics has moved onto the street?
That's right. And that's why it could backfire. Erdogan's strategy could backfire on him. And in the past, it did. In 2019, when Ekrem İmamoğlu won the municipal elections in Istanbul, Erdogan did not accept the result and call for a rerun. And while in the first round, Ekrem İmamoğlu had won by a razor-thin majority, in the second round, people got so angry and frustrated that they handed Ekrem İmamoğlu a bigger win. So this could easily backfire. And now that hundreds of thousands of people are on the streets, this could turn into something much bigger that Erdogan had not expected.
And could it turn into something much more violent? Because we know that Erdogan has cracked down on the demonstrations by arresting.
That's a real ass Turkish accent right there, by the way. For those of you who are wondering what the Turkish English accent sounds like, that's it. Straight up. That's what it sounds like.
People, but could he take it to the next level? I mean, could this get really bloody and nasty?
It could. This is the latest demonstration since 2013.
Oh, yeah. The Turkish government also issued travel restrictions to Istanbul to curb the spread of anti-government protests sparked by the detention of a prominent opposition politician. And it's 2:40 a.m. right now, and protests are still going. These are scenes from Taksim. Taksim is a major hub. This is where the very famous Gezi protests also happen. And Taksim Square is like the Times Square kind of the United States of America. İmamoğlu is a true OG style Sakdem, by the way. Built multiple metros and train roads in Istanbul. He also built so many municipality-owned food places all over the public parks where they have lowest fuck prices for coffee, tea, snacks, and bagels, etc. He also built many halk lokantas, which kind of translates to the people's restaurant, where they serve food for workers at like 1/3 of the private restaurant prices. He kind of gives me hope, not gonna lie. Is the opposition a better alternative for Turkey? Yes. While I certainly have my criticisms of the opposition, especially like the leadership roles within the opposition, I would, yes, 100% yes. First of all, even if they're corrupt, they're not going to be able to be as corrupt as Erdogan. Okay? I'm not even saying they're not going to be corrupt, but let's be real, okay? It is virtually impossible for them to be as bad as Erdogan and as corrupt as Erdogan. It's just not possible because he is one of the best in the world at both of those things. And when I say that, I mean like it's like him, Vladimir Putin, you know what I mean? Like there's a handful like few people on this planet that are able to command such large economies as if it is their own personal as if it's their own personal wallet. Like, he is so insanely corrupt. It is crazy. It is honestly, it is genuinely one of the few instances. Like, I always say, when people talk about North Korea, right, they're like, oh, it's actually entirely because of the Kim family and like their corrupt dynasty, and that's the reason why the people are so poor. It's like, no, it's the sanctions, right? But with Turkey truly is one of the few places where you can make the argument that like one family and their besties are almost entirely responsible for all of the pain and all the struggle that people experience. Now, having said that, has he also been responsible for the expansion of the welfare state? Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. It's interesting because people get mad at that and they're like, oh, he's just like winning votes. I don't have an issue with that. I don't personally have an issue with like winning votes. Okay? The issue I have is that he has created this political machine that basically relies on people going out and voting for him, and that's the only way that you can get the financial aid necessary to survive, while also simultaneously doing the worst building practices, as we saw some of the implementation of said awful business practices and rampant corruption within the party structure that had a devastating impact on the infrastructure in the aftermath of the massive earthquake in Turkey, which he still won an election afterwards, after that violence. Wasn't Turkey a military dictatorship before Erdogan? No. What? No. There have been times when there have been military coups in Turkey, yes. But no, Turkey is not a military dictatorship. There have been moments in Turkish history where the administration has been overthrown by the military only to have elections afterwards. Military coups. Protestocu bir genç plastik mermileri aldırış etmeden polis politikanın önünde şınav çekti. Vay be. He's one of the protesters were doing push-ups in front of the cops as they were peppering him with less than lethal bullets. They're literally shooting him. This is why we say ACAB is universal, by the way. Is the Kim family not responsible for the state of North Korea at all? No, they are, for sure. But it's a blip in comparison to the massive harm done to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea from Western powers, like a full-blown blockade implemented and continued in the aftermath of the dissolution of the USSR, when they desperately needed any kind of aid, especially when there was a massive famine that nuked half the country. Yeah. Their leadership, their authoritarian leadership certainly plays a role in the conditions of North Koreans, of course. But it is a minor responsibility when you consider the major responsibility of the embargo, full-blown sanctions on Korea. Abi gözünü seveyim bak. Oğlum salak mısın? Baktım. Allah Allah. Kendim retweet ettim zaten. Ben de tweet ettim amına koyayım. Allah Allah. Ne diyorsun lan? Bak. Benim Twitter'ıma bak istiyorsan. Al. A blip, Lamau. You can cope all you want. You can cope all you want. Is Erdogan in power forever? I mean, seemingly. He will maintain power forever by doing shit like this.
2013, again, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets to protest Erdogan's policies. And since then, Erdogan has taken steps to clamp down further on mass protests and to make sure these wide-scale protests do not occur. Until now, you've seen police being very cautious Although since yesterday night, we've seen the police violence ramping up, so this could get a lot worse.
And just finally, I mean, Donald Trump is rearranging the geopolitical furniture everywhere with his actions and his pronouncement. Is President Erdogan taking any inspiration from the way that President Trump is behaving?
Yes, I think President Trump's return to the White House had a huge impact on the way foreign autocrats behave. In the past, there was a slight concern in Ankara about how Washington might react to these repressions. Not anymore. So that's number one. Number two is Trump's return to the White House has created this vulnerability among European capitals. They think that they are now all alone, trying to defend themselves.
Yeah, and Erdogan is the second largest military in NATO. And the more he says he's pro-Ukraine, the more European leaders will go, okay, you can do whatever you want. We don't like it. We think you're barbaric, but we can't say anything.
Against an aggressive Russia without American help, which forced them to engage Erdogan. So there is now a political climate, international political climate, where the West really doesn't want to see.
Like, as much as I despise Erdogan, the one thing that I will always give him credit for, even though I don't want to, is the fact that he is pretty conniving. He is very conniving. He's a very smart dude in both maintaining a level of support, no matter what, from his base, and also very good at managing being a regional power and the second largest and maintaining the second largest standing military in NATO. You don't stay in power for 22 plus years without doing that.
Say anything to Erdogan because of the things that he's doing to his own people, and Erdogan knows that, and that's really what one of the reasons why he is so emboldened to do these things.
Gönül Tol, thank you very much indeed.
Here's the NBC coverage on it. Protests in Turkey surge over detainment of Istanbul mayor.
Tonight, protests in Turkey reaching a boiling point. Street demonstrators clashing violently with police after the main political rival of the nation's president, Tayyip Erdogan, was detained. Turkish police blasting crowds with water cannons in Izmir and using tear gas to break up protests in the capital city of Ankara. Despite a ban on demonstrations, thousands also flooding the streets in Istanbul over what they call the undemocratic detention of Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who was set to be announced as a presidential candidate this weekend and leads President Erdogan in some polls.
70 yaşındayım.
This 70-year-old protester saying as long as they don't release İmamoğlu, we're not leaving.
Üzülerek söylüyorum.
On Wednesday, İmamoğlu posting a video saying police were at his door prior to an early dawn raid.
I would say that the only difference between Russia, the only difference between Russia and Turkey at this stage basically is that the opposition leadership is like an eclectic group of people that don't have any sort of like real ideological coalition beyond overthrowing Erdogan. But they are still a real opposition, and they represent the real 50+% of the population, as opposed to in Russia, the opposition is completely controlled. They are also at the behest of Vladimir Putin. That's the major difference.
He faces charges that include graft and aiding a terrorist group. İmamoğlu denies all allegations against him. His Republican People's Party condemns the move as politically motivated and say other prominent opposition figures were also taken into custody.
Very often, there is no rule of law in Erdogan's Turkey, and currently Turkey's jails are full of Erdogan's political opponents. Turkish constitution has a very vague terrorism concept, so
Hey, Americans, when I said America is Turkifying at an alarming rate, this is what I was talking about, by the way. To all the dumbass like hogs that come in here and watch me to be like, you're so stupid. You're so stupid, Hasan. It's based to like call anything and everything terrorism and like jail people. Okay, this is it. This is the product. You like that?
he uses that in order to attack his opponents.
Turkey's government denies claims of targeting its political rivals. But on Friday, Erdogan warning against illegal calls from the opposition for protests, saying, "We will not give in to vandalism or street terrorism." Turkey's interior minister confirming dozens of protesters have been arrested.
And to the Turks who are anti-Kurd, just like I tell Israelis who are anti-Palestinian and not anti-Zionist, this chatter is correct. This behavior isn't new. Erdogan has routinely jailed Kurdish politicians on a regular basis throughout his tenure. Exactly. When you don't recognize that that shit is completely unacceptable, it will expand to your favorite political leader, and it will expand to you as well one day. That's how it works. So in America, you might be thinking, for example, to bring it back here for a moment, if you're an American and you think, oh, I'm safe, I'm an American citizen. The f do you mean? Okay, these guys that are getting packed up are immigrants. They're insignificant, inconsequential. Who cares about what happens to them? Guess what? Eventually, it will f you over too. And if you don't actually immediately start protesting against that shit when it happens, you are going to be facing a challenge that you will not be able to overcome. You're misleading people on Erdoğan. Üzülerek yaşıyoruz burada. Opposition can't run this country more than a month. Turkey gets better every day. I guess US as well. Erdoğan isn't even tiny bit anti-Kurd. You're misleading people on Erdoğan. Oh, memleket, hometown, because he's capable to reach agreement with any group of the country. Yeah. We got Erdoğan supporters. Reis laf yok. Reis'e laf yok. Salak herif. Oğlum dinliyorum. Ulan dinliyorsan aç kulaklarını iyi dinle. Eğer Erdoğan, bu CHP koalisyonu ülkeyi yönetemezse bir aydan daha fazla niye hapse atıyor Ekrem İmamoğlu'nu? Atmasın, kazansın, ondan sonra bok etsinler ülkeyi o zaman yani. Ondan sonra AKP geri gelir başa. Gurbette yaşamıyorsa piçim. Almancı mı sence? Yok değil bence. Almancı değil. Elazığ'dayım. Vay amına koyayım. Gurbetçi değilmiş. Antalya'da yaşıyorum. Kesin Almancı Türkçe bilen AKP'li mi olur? Is the opposition anti-Israel and aesthetic? No, Erdogan is anti-Israel and aesthetic. If there's one guy who actually has the power to shut off the entirety of the electricity grid of Israel, it's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The very fact that it has not happened means that his opposition to Israel is purely aesthetic. Don't ever tell an Erdogan supporter that reality, by the way. They will get so mad. They'll be like, no, what are you saying? I remember when Erdogan himself was not so pro-Hamas as he is now, okay? Just remember that. And same goes for the opposition too. And same goes for all the weird fascists who hate Arabs in Turkey because they think they're superior to Arabs in Turkey. They think like, no, you don't understand. The Western world will welcome us with open arms because we are different than the Arabs. We're a Western nation. Yeah, right, dude. Europeans don't even like Polish people, and those Christian. What are you talking about? They literally think you are exactly the same as Arabs, okay? You're Muslim. That's it. You can say you're an atheist all day, every day. No American will ever treat you. No Westerner will ever look at you as a true European person, okay? No matter how much you chirp, no matter how much, you are no different than the Hindutva fascists here in the United States of America that are pro-Trump, that are going to inevitably be deported by our fascist government, okay? Every time I say this, Turkish people clip this and start posting it on every forum, and they get so mad at me, okay? Initially, I yelled at Turkish chatters in the immediate aftermath of October 7, okay? In the immediate aftermath of October 7, I yelled at the Turkish chatters who were telling me, like, you know, that they're pro-Israel and Hamas, Palestine, whatever, okay? And I told them that they're dogs, okay? That they're lower, that their status will never be elevated in the eyes of Europeans, no matter how hard they present themselves as pro-Israel and how hard they say that they're better than Arabs, okay? And they clipped it and they got so mad at me. But you want to know something that's very funny? Every single group that posted that clip and got mad at me is now openly pro-Palestine. Every single one of those leaders of the individuals that posted those clips, every single one of them is now unconditionally pro-Palestine. Many of their leaders literally lied about their initial defense of Israel. If you ask them about it, they'll go, oh, what do you mean? No, I was never pro-Israel. What are you talking about? Yeah. What happened? What happened? Ne oldu? Beni koyuyordunuz ekşi sözlüğe. Hasan Türklere köpek diyor falan diye. Koyuyordunuz beni ekşi sözlüğe. Bağırıyordunuz orada. Şimdi niye bağırıyorsunuz İsrail katil diye? Seviyordunuz İsrail'i. Ne oldu? Götünüze girdi mi o? Bana dönüp ondan sonra Batı'nın köpeği diyorlar. İngiliz uşağı diyorlar. Ulan Batı'nın köpeği İngiliz uşağı İsrail'i sever. Anyway.
Posting on X that at least 37 social media users were also detained for sharing posts inciting public hatred
Daha
or
çok babandan
crime.
dolayı FETÖ'cü diyorlar. Evet, o da çok komik amına koyayım. Bana FETÖ'cü demeleri en komiği. Hem bir yandan diyorlar ki topum ben. Çünkü tırnaklarımı boyuyorum. Ondan sonra FETÖ'cü diyorlar amına koyayım. Bu komik tabii, çünkü bir yandan Amerika'da da aynen bu şekilde bana devamlı laf ediyorlar. Türkiye'de de laf ediyorlar bu şekilde. Abi sana demokratlar ajanı diyorlardı en son. Demokratların ajanı. Anyway.
Residents now worried about the crackdown.
Yani her şeyimizi
This woman saying anyone who raises their voice is thrown in jail. Matt Bradley, NBC News.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news.
Yeah, I could be the Asmongold of Turkey and say that Reis is doing the best. I could simply be the Erdogan of Turkey and just be like, yeah, based. Reis. Anyway, top Houthi official says, we are at war with America as the U.S. resumes strikes.
Overnight, Houthi rebels fired another missile at Israel.
Kebab gold. No, Osmanlı gold. Osmanlı. Osmanoğlu gold. Osmanoğlu. Altın Osmanoğlu. Not Reis. Now he is Sultan. Yeah. Sultan olmuş adam. Reis değil artık. How can Turkey cut off power to Israel? More than 20% of the entire electricity grid from Israel comes by way of Turkey from Azerbaijan. If Turkey wanted to shut off Israel's power, they literally could. Or more than 20%. I'm getting the percentages wrong, I think.